Okay, we are starting Pythagorean Theorem video notes. Usually this is huge on the map test, and we're getting really close to map testing, so be sure that you guys understand this whole theorem and when it is used. First of all, you should know that it is only used in the case of right triangles. So you might write somewhere that this is a right triangle. Just a quick review, right triangles have one right angle, and that's what makes it a right triangle, and the Pythagorean theorem is only used in right triangles. So we're going to put that, only used in right triangles. Oops, sorry. It's not used in acute triangles or obtuse triangles or anything equilateral, nothing. Only in right triangles. So whenever you hear anything about a 90-degree angle in a triangle, they're probably trying to get you to think about the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, the legs, if you look at your picture over here, the legs are the two sides that make up the right angle. So they are the two sides that make up the right angle. Okay, I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Okay, they are the two sides that make up the right angle. Also, a lot of times they are called A and B. In fact, in the formula, they are the A and the B. And because this or this, we're going to end up adding them together. Okay, sorry about that. There was an announcement. In the formula, you're going to see that we're going to be adding these sides together. So this could be A and this could be B, or it's interchangeable. This could be A and this could be B. Because when you add things, the order doesn't matter. Okay, the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is this long side. It's always the longest side, and it is also the side that is opposite the right angle. So when I say opposite the right angle, I mean wherever your right angle is, if you look across from it, that is always going to be the hypotenuse. And again, it's always the longest side. So we're going to put that the hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. And in parentheses, go ahead and put it's always the longest side of your triangle. Always. So if you're trying to find it quickly, just look for whichever side is the longest, and that is the hypotenuse. Okay, here's your formula. Please memorize this. Do your very best to know this forever. You're going to need it for next year and definitely the rest of this year. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. All right, so you're going to take your leg and square it. You're going to add it to your other leg squared, and it is going to exactly equal your hypotenuse side squared. So go ahead and label the hypotenuse as your C. Anytime you square this, add them together, it is exactly going to be whatever your hypotenuse side is after you square it. Okay, so here's your example. First, you need to know these are the two legs. You can call this side A and this side B, or this side B and this side A. The order, again, doesn't matter. This is the C, and we are missing that C side. So if you set it up, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, you're just going to solve an equation. A squared, I'm calling this side that's 24 my side A, so that would be 24 squared, plus B, I'm calling that side my 7-inch side, so 7 squared, and it equals, we don't know, so we're just going to call that C squared. Okay, I'm going to take my calculator, and 24 squared is 24. You can just push this little right next to the left of the 7, that little fancy squared button. And if you push that, it'll square it for you. Or you can push 24 times 24, because that's what squaring it is. And that is 576 plus 7 squared. I hope you already know that's 49. Okay, so we're just solving an equation. Add these two together, 576 plus 49. 576 plus 49, and that equals 625. 625. Okay, I have so many students who will stop there and go, okay, my answer then is 625, but it is not. First of all, you need to look. If we have a side that's 7 and a side that's 24, is it reasonable to have another side that's 625? That is way too big. That's not even reasonable. So we have to look and say, well, that's actually what c squared is, not just what c is. So we need to unsquare it, which is actually called square root. So if you square root this, it will become just c. But what you do to one side, you have to also do to the other. So we're going to square root 625. On my calculator, you have to push the shift button, or this second button, and then it is the x squared. Because it's above x squared, it's this little square root button right here. So I have to push shift and then square root button, and then I put in my 625 equals 25. So that means that 25 times 25 is 625. So my answer is 25. So the c, or the hypotenuse side, would measure 25, and that's a lot more reasonable to have a side that's 7, 24, and 25. All right. Go ahead and push the video, pause if you would like, and try the your turn on your own, and then come back on and check it and make sure you've done it correctly. Okay, I'll walk you through it, or you can skip to the answer in case you're not sure how to do this. These are the two legs because they make up the right angle. So I'm going to call that A and that B.
Pardon the interruption.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to call this side my A and this side my B, and again, it doesn't really matter. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You should always start by writing that down, just so you can make sure you're writing down the correct information. So that was my 30, plus that is my 40, and we don't know C. 30 squared is 30 times 30, which is 900. 40 times 40 is 1600. So when you add 900 plus 1600, you get 2500. And remember, it's not reasonable to say that my hypotenuse is 2500. So we're going to have to square root it to get c by itself. The square root of 2500, remember shift, square root of is 50. So the hypotenuse is 50. All right, let's do example B. This time it gave us the hypotenuse, and it gave us one of the two legs. So I'm going to call that my A. This is always the C. And we are missing B this time. So this is exactly kind of backwards. So I would always start by writing your formula again, and then just going through and filling in. So my A is going to be my 12. B we don't know, so we're just going to leave it B squared, and C is my long side, so that's the 15 squared, that's the hypotenuse. All right, 12 squared is 144, plus we don't know, so we're just going to keep it B squared. 15 squared, I don't have that memorized, is 225. So write 225. Okay, this is going back to solving an equation. It's been a few months since we've done that, but please, hopefully you remember how. We need B to be solved. So we have to get rid of the 144 by subtracting it. Cancel, bring down B squared. 225 minus 144 is 81. All right, and then last thing, you can't have B squared. What we're trying to get is just B, just the leg by itself, unsquared. So we're going to square root both sides, and the square root of 81 is 9. Always double check to see if it's reasonable. 12, 9, and 15. That would be reasonable because our longest side, our hypotenuse, is 15. So that makes sense. All right, you can pause the video and try the your turn, or if you'd rather me work it out with you, you can just let it play. All right, again, start by A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Make sure you know which is which. The longest side across from the right angle is your C, is your hypotenuse. A and B don't matter. I'll call this one A and this one B, but again, if you called that one B and this one A, you're going to get the same answer I do. So my A is 40 squared, plus we don't know B squared, but we do know the hypotenuse is 41, so squared. 40 squared is 4 times 4 is 1600, plus we don't know B squared, so leave it B squared. 41 squared, I have no idea. 41 squared is 1681. So 1681. All right, we're just solving an equation, so you need to subtract 1,600 over here and over here. B squared equals whatever that is. Oh, it'd just be 81. And then square root both sides. B is 9. And again, check to make sure that that seems reasonable, and according to my picture, it does. So that is correct. All right, let's turn the page. Okay, these are going to be like your second buzz math that we're going to have you guys do. It's a little bit harder, but I'll guarantee there's going to be one of these on the map test, and you're going to need to know how to do it. So it's kind of a multi-step thing. You have a box that is used for shipping narrow copper tubes measuring a 6 by 6 by 20 inches. What is the length of the longest tube that will fit in the box, given that the length of the tube must be a whole number of inches? Okay, so we're going to end up wanting to find R also, but in order to find R, we're first going to have to solve and find S. So what I want you guys to look at is just the bottom of the box, just the very bottom of the shipping box. In fact, I may draw it just more two-dimensionally here, just so I can make sure I know what I'm looking at. So this is the bottom of the box, and it says it's 20 inches across. Right here it tells us it's 6 inches tall, and we are looking for the S. That is not a straight line, but okay. All right, what I want you guys to see is this bottom of the box would form a right angle, which means we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find out what S measures. If it's 6 on the right, it's also 6 on the left. So now I want you guys to only look at this triangle. It is a right angle, and we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find S. So we are looking at two legs, and we're missing the long diagonal, which is the hypotenuse. So let's solve to find S first. These would be the two legs. So in our a squared plus b squared equals c squared, A and B would be the 6 and 20. And again, order doesn't matter, so I'll put 6 first. 20 equals, we don't know because that's our S. I'm going to actually call it S. All right, 6 squared is 36. 20 squared is 400. When you add those two together, that's 436. And we're going to have to take the square root on both sides. So the square root of 436 is something weird. So I think it says, does it say round? Well, we're not going to be able to round because if you rounded up, that would assume that the box would fit a little bit of a bigger size, but it won't. Actually, you know what? I just want to leave it 436 for now. Let's call 436 because we're actually going to use that number to find R squared. Let's leave 436 our S squared for now. Normally we would square root it and get the final answer, but because we're going to use it in something else, let's make sure that we know that 436 is what S squared is. Okay, let's move on to the second part. Okay, for the second part, we are trying to find, I'm going to just draw over it, this triangle in here. Okay, I hope you guys can see which one I darkened in. This is also a right angle. It may not look like it because it's drawn three-dimensionally, but it is. So, so this triangle would still be, I'm just going to rewrite this over here, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But the wonderful thing is we already know what one of the sides squared is. So we are going to take our height, which is the same as this height, so that's 6, so this side is also 6, and our length, so the two legs, which is 436 after it's squared. So we're going to take 6 squared plus S squared, but we already found S squared, which is 436. Okay, 6 squared is 36, plus your 436, and again, I didn't have to re-square that because I already squared it earlier, and that equals our c squared. So let's add these two together, 436 plus 36, and that equals 472. And then to find what actually c is, this time we're going to square root it. Okay. So 472 square root of. All right, it's about 21.7. So I will, for our paper, write about. That's what that squiggly equals means. It means it's about 21.7. But the question wants to know a whole number length that will be the biggest amount of a tube that will fit. So you can't round it up to 22 because that's assuming the box is a little bit bigger and the box can round up, which it cannot. So the actually biggest number would be 21. So the longest length of the tube that will fit in the box is a 21-inch tube. Okay, that one was pretty tricky. Let's move on to example D. Okay, another perfect map style question. The diagonal of a rectangular big screen TV. So let's say here's your big screen TV. And the diagonal of it, so they mean this, the diagonal of it measures 152 centimeters. The length measures, so the length is the bottom, the whole length across, measures 132. What is the height? Okay, it's a perfect Pythagorean theorem. You know that a TV has a right angle. So we are given the hypotenuse, which is the C, and you guys are now going to figure out one of the missing legs. So again, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This time we have our c squared, which is the long side, 152. And we have one of the legs, I'll just put it for A, and we are missing one of the legs, so I'll keep that called B. All right, 132 squared, these are going to be big numbers. 132 squared is 17,424. 17,424. Plus, we don't know b squared, so leave it b squared. 152 squared is 23,104. So 23,104. All right, solve the equation. Subtract 17,424. Subtract 17,424. Bring down b squared. Minus 17,424. That is 5,680. 5,680. All right, and then last step is square root it to get b by itself. So b equals the square root of 5,680. And it's a funny decimal. So let's go ahead and round to the nearest tenth because that's what we've been doing. So I'm going to change my exactly equals to about equals 75 point, we'll round it to 4. It was 17.36, so we will say 75.4 centimeters. All right, two more. Number 3. A painter has a 24-foot ladder that he's using to paint a house. All right, I'm going to have to draw this. Here's the house. Don't make fun of my artwork. All right, here's the house. He has a 24-foot ladder. Here's the ladder. And it is a 24-foot ladder. So that's 24 feet. He's using to paint a house. For safety reasons, the ladder must be placed at least 8 feet from the base of the house. So here's how far it is from the base of the house. It's 8 feet out. All right. To the nearest tenth of a foot, how high can the ladder reach safely? So we want to know how high up that ladder is reaching. So again, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You know that this is forming a right angle. So this 24 foot is the hypotenuse. It's the ladder is the longest part. So that's going to be my c. The two legs are, we don't know, and 8. So I'll just put 8 here and leave b squared, we don't know. And we're going to solve the equation. 8 squared is 64. 24 squared is something. 576. And we're just going to solve the equation. Subtract 64 from both sides. 576 minus 64 is 512, and we have to square root it. So B is about, I don't know, it says 22.6. What are we rounding to? The nearest tenth. So yeah, 22.6. And they're talking about feet. All right, there we go. Last question. American football fields measure 100 yards long between the end zones and are 53 1/3 yards wide. All right, I'm going to draw a football field. So American football fields measure 100 yards long and are 53 1/3. I actually did not know that. 53 1/3 yards wide. Is the length of the diagonal across the field, so here's the diagonal they're asking about, is the length more or less than 120? Explain. So this is a right angle. We don't know our hypotenuse, so let's just set up the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. These are my two legs, so you're going to use them for a and b. So it doesn't matter which. I'll put 53 1/3 first, squared, plus 100 squared equals, we don't know, let's just call it c squared. All right, 53 1/3 squared. This is going to be interesting. Unless you have one of these fancy calculators, I don't know how you're going to do it. So 53 1/3. So I'm going to put 53, ABC button. It's right here. That means and, 53 and 1/3 is 1, and then ABC button again, and then 3. And then I'm going to multiply it by 53 1/3 again. So 53 ABC1, ABC3 equals, wow, something really crazy. So 2844.4. 2844, we'll call it 0.4. Plus 100 squared, you guys can probably figure out in your head, but it's just adding 2 more zeros, so it's 10,000. Equals, we don't know, c squared. So we'll do 2844.4 plus 10,000, and that is 12,844.4, and then we need to square root it. All right, so square root of 12844.4 equals 113.3, so about 113.3. So the question was, is it more or less than 120 yards? So is 113.3 more or less than 120 yards? It is less, and when it says to explain, we can put, using the Pythagorean theorem, we found the diagonal to be about 113.3 yards. Okay, good job.